be 5 sessions over 5 weeks. So that's all day Saturday. So the kind of idea is that it will run a little bit like an intensive course, but in between you'll have time to work on your project so you can go away and come back, you know, having developed and worked on the skills in between. Started? Okay, so I'll just start by talking about what is front-end code. We tend to hear this front-end, back-end terminology a lot in web development, and it's not always clear what that means. So when we talk about front-end code, we're talking about the content of the website, so usually the text and images, the presentation, so the colours, the layout, the fonts, what we would think of as the graphic design of the site, and the interaction. So that's any animated elements on the page, anything you can click and it moves. So this is like drop-down menus, image carousels, this kind of stuff. This all falls under front-end development. It's not back-end, front-end code. Is anything to do with storing information in databases, with user management, passwords, authentication. Usually business logic is not done on the front end, so that's stuff to do with e-commerce, or for example if you're using like a time tracking software, all of your records of your time are kept on the back end and managed on the back end. So what's really great about learning front-end skills, or if you're interested in web development starting with front-end skills, is that with front-end skills alone you can build an entire website. And yeah, kind of get yourself up on the web and then get started. So what we can do with front-end skills is also getting bigger and bigger all the time as the front-end technologies become more sophisticated. So you can build websites, but you can also build web apps, simple ones. But there's also the possibility to build hybrid apps. So these are apps that you can actually download from Google Play or from the Apple Store and install on your mobile phone, and they're basically kind of a native wrapper, and inside is your HTML and CSS and JavaScript that you would normally have running on a website. So there's also this possibility as well. There's also probably in the future going to be more and more possibilities to build desktop apps with these front-end technologies. So Windows 8, for example, you can build apps that run on your desktop like a traditional application, but they're running with HTML, JavaScript, CSS. Okay, that's super, you're saying, but at the end of 5 days, I'm not going to be building apps and getting them up in the App Store, let's be realistic. So what can you do with just a little bit of front-end skills? And here I'm thinking that who's going to be interested in this course and why might they be interested? And I'm thinking designers, writers, journalists and bloggers, people who are working in marketing, people who are product managers, and founders and entrepreneurs. And I think all of these types of people can really gain from having at least some knowledge of HTML, JavaScript and CSS. So I'll look at these cases one by one. We have designers. I think what's fantastic for designers about having front-end skills is firstly you can expand your skill set. So if you're working with clients and you're designing their website and you might be the one with the contact with the client and you're responsible for maintaining that site over time, then it's nice to be able to, if your client calls up and says, oh, can we change that blue to be 3 shades lighter, you can do that yourself without having to call a developer and go through the whole rigmarole of that process. I think there's kind of other advantages as well. One of the big advantages is that you can work more effectively with developers, and so it's kind of less of this loggerheads process that unfortunately often happens with the design developer not really talking together very well. And I think that another really, really great thing about having at least some understanding of how CSS, particularly really modern CSS and JavaScript works, is that you can really explore the potential of those technologies and do things with them that are just not possible with print design, but these kind of interactive animated technologies enable you to do. So, and those kinds of things that developers might not see because they don't have that kind of same creative or user interactivity focused. If you're doing content and marketing, then I know a lot of people who are working as writers and bloggers or journalists are very frustrated with the content management system that they're using, whether that's WordPress or Typo-Dry or a custom system. It's often like, oh, I just want to move this over a little bit to the left, or, you know, I've got this picture here and the text sort of comes around, but not quite in the way that I want. So just having a little snippets of HTML and CSS that you can put in makes that so much easier, and I think makes the process so much faster, and you can focus on really doing what you do best, which is your writing or your photography or whatever. You have a little bit more control over how you present yourself online. And you can also, I know if you're working in marketing, there's a lot of work in terms of, you know, tracking visits, social tracking, and being able to kind of install these little tracking scripts and stuff like that is kind of really nice to be able to do that yourself, and again, not have to call up IT or call up an external developer to do this kind of work. Founders and managers, and here I think if you're interested in developing a tech-based or an online-based company, or you're working as a product manager for such a company, then it's fantastic to firstly get an insight into the development process. So how does the kind of whole thing work from conception to design, development, testing and launch? This is kind of this whole flow, and I think to run through that flow yourself, even just once, is really great. The other thing is that you can make a little bit more informed decisions about selecting the technologies that you want to use. And you kind of able to ask intelligent questions of your developers and say, you know, why have you chosen to go down this way? Are we going to be locked into something that's outdated or outmoded? Okay, so that's kind of who I'm hoping will be taking part. But I'm very flexible to kind of redesigning the course content to what people actually want to learn. So I'm very focused on practical skills, something that you can put online straight away. I think there's definitely a value for things like Code Academy and the Team Treehouse and stuff like that. I've certainly used them myself to kind of skill up and fill in sort of gaps in your knowledge. But I think there's nothing more effective than actually having a project that you have to finish and you want to get out there. So I'm really open to kind of people coming with projects that they like to make themselves. They've got an idea for a website, their own website, and we kind of work through that process over the course of the 5 weeks. So to do that, we'll be covering HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. They're the 3 most important languages for front-end development. We'll also be looking at design workflow, testing, and professional tools. I'll talk a little bit more about each of these. Okay, so HTML. HTML, it's like what the web looked like in 1995, maybe 92. The web theoretically could function with HTML alone. Not really the web as we know it, but you know, a web. So HTML is the content of your site. So it's the text, the images, and these days also audio and video. So it's what you're actually coming to a website to see. So the first session will be HTML. You'll start coding more or less straight away. And by the end of the day, you'll be coding a full web page that's a simple profile of yourself with images. You introduce yourself, and we'll also be going through how you upload that. So by the end of the first day, you'll have something online that's you. You're a developer. The next session will be on CSS. CSS is what we use to make our stuff look awesome. It's my Australian awesome.
Everything else is Australian too.
I know, particularly it's awesome. I think it's awesome. It's something, I don't know. So in this session, we'll be taking a profile and making it look much nicer. So CSS is responsible for managing the colors, the styles, the fonts, the layout, what you would kind of think of as graphic design or a little bit like Photoshop for the web, I guess. JavaScript will be our third language. JavaScript is what you use to create interactivity on the page. So your drop-down menus, your image sliders, some sort of form elements also are managed with JavaScript. So that the menus and sliders is what we'll be working towards building, because I think that's kind of the most common thing that people want. But also we'll be looking at some fundamental programming concepts. And JavaScript is, I think, a really great language for getting started with programming. So we'll be looking at variables, functions, and control flow. And these are concepts that translate to any or most programming languages, but particularly to the back-end web technologies like PHP or Ruby. So it's kind of skills and a way of thinking that will translate very nicely into other contexts if you're interested in doing more development. We'll also do a session on design workflow. I think this is really important, and unfortunately, at least in my experience, a lot of people who have studied graphic design, it's very, very focused on print. And there's a lot of people kind of struggling to understand, how do I design effectively for the web, particularly for the responsive web. Because in the past, it was kind of very straightforward. Every website is going to be 960 pixels wide, like just the industry decided that's the convention. And the designer makes up this beautiful Photoshop template that's 960 pixels wide, gives it to the developer. The developer screams and has a hiss effect because they've used transparency and rounded corners and all of these things that you couldn't do. And they argue, and then they chop up the Photoshop template, and then that becomes the website. Now, this process just does not work for phones and tablets and laptops and big screens and TVs. It's just not possible to create a fully fledged Photoshop mock-up for every device size and screen size and so forth. So, but how do we design effectively, and how do we have this, nice branding and good layout, and it present something that has a really nice quality to it? It's a big question. So we'll be looking at the process that I use with the designers that I work with, and this is kind of based on this style tiles process. So it's similar to kind of a mood boarding process. It's a little bit between a mood board and a fully fledged design. We sort of look at how you can develop a template for reusable elements that you can use throughout all the different scales of your website.
Excuse me,
yeah, sure.
Reboarding? Is that what you said?
Oh, sorry, mood boards.
Mood boards. What are they?
Sorry, so mood board is like a very classical part of the design process, where you would have say for example in interior design, and I go to my interior designer and I say, I've got this room, it's really sunny in the mornings, I eat my breakfast there, it should be a nice calm room, please design it for me. And then the interior designer will go away and find photos of similar rooms that match my description, the sort of colours, maybe like little pictures of types of furniture or furnishings that could go in that room, and put them all together into a nice sort of collage, scrapbook kind of thing. Hi. And that will then serve as the inspiration for the further development of the design. So we're kind of translating this concept from interior design and from print design, and saying, how can we make this work for us in the context of the web?
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like your Pinterest boards.
It's exactly like Pinterest. Before there was Pinterest, there was mood boards. Okay, so then testing. Boring, but necessary. So this is the bane of every web designer's life. At least it's the bane of mine. So what we have now is a situation where, as I said, you really need to be able to present your work nicely across this big range of browsers, which we have here, but also across a range of different devices. So in my work, what I'm testing for is the 4 of these browsers. I don't do Opera. I'm also testing for the latest and second latest versions of iPad, iPhone, Samsung, Google, and increasingly also Windows Phone. So when you add it all up, this is like 20 different browsers and devices that we're looking at. And that's honestly just scratching the surface. So we try to cover about 90% of internet traffic in Germany. That's our goal. But obviously, I work for NGOs. I don't have all of those devices. So I use a service called Browser Stack that lets you see or emulate what your site would look like on all of these different browsers and devices, and then you invariably find problems that you need to correct because everyone sort of interprets your code a little bit differently. So we'll be looking at that. We won't use it, do a huge amount, but Browser Stack has very kindly agreed to sponsor us, so we've got an account for everyone to kind of sign in and have a play around and see how that works. We'll also do a session on professional tools. So as I said, we'll be looking at Browser Stack, but we'll be using Sublime Text throughout the whole course, but we'll also be looking at how do we use libraries such as Bootstrap and jQuery to do a lot of the heavy lifting for us. So a lot of the time when you're building a website, you don't start with like an empty page and begin. Because that's just would be exhausting. There's kind of a common core of patterns, design patterns, of interactive elements that many websites are reusing. And this enables us to develop our designs more rapidly and focus less on doing all the really boring basic stuff and instead focus on what makes our site special and unique and develop that. So having a bit of an introduction into how to make use of those tools. So the final results will be that you should, or going to plan, develop a multi-page website that you can use to promote yourself or your portfolio or perhaps an event that you're running. So basically a simple marketing website. Let's have a responsive design, and if you need it and want it, you can include navigation, an image carousel, and text, and whatever other kind of elements you want, I guess. It's a bit about the learning approach. As I said, I really want to keep this focus on practical skills, so something that you can go away and start using right from day one, and also try and tailor it a little bit to meet the needs of the group. So I think on day one we'll have a little bit of a meet and greet, and I'll try and get some ideas from the group on what people are wanting to learn and how we can best support that so that everyone gets an effective outcome. We'll be doing a lot of peer learning. So peer coding is a really important practice in developer culture in general. So you find it at hackathons, but you're also finding it at the best kind of software houses are working by having two people sitting side by side on one computer. And it's a really fantastic way to, you're forced to talk about the problem that you're solving, which really helps you articulate and helps you learn. And you're also kind of pooling the skills of two people to overcome hurdles. So we'll be doing a lot of that. I find it a really, really enjoyable practice. And we'll also be doing peer code reviews. So code reviews, again, is kind of best practice that you develop something and then it's not just like, oh, it looks fine, nobody like lift under the hood because there's this horrible spaghetti mess underneath, but actually looking at the quality of the code that you're producing and
sorry. Thanks. I don't need to pass by.
And you know, it's not kind of like, oh, like you failed, but it's more about how can we do this better, and also you learn from other people's techniques that way. You think, oh, I never would have approached that problem in that way. So we'll be doing that. Want to create a really friendly and expecting quite a diverse environment, so have to emphasize in my book there are no stupid questions. I think that, you know, 9 times out of 10 you put up your hand and you're like, oh, I'm going to sound like an idiot if I ask this, and you ask it and then half the room's like, oh yeah, I've always wanted to know that, you know. These really kind of base level concepts. So I really kind of want to encourage people to ask questions at any time, and we have this kind of nice space where everyone can kind of work together to learn. And then finally, so yes, as I said, very practical. We're going to have a website for the course where you'll be able to download the materials for each week. So for example, the design week, there's going to be Photoshop templates and so forth to get started. So every student will have their own area. You can log in and you can upload your work so that there'll be a showcase and you can see all the other students' work as well, which I think will be lovely. So that's kind of that about me. Why should you learn from me? So my name is Melanie. I probably should have said that at the beginning. My name is Melanie. I'm Australian. I moved to Berlin 5 years ago. I don't really have a traditional computer science background. I actually studied political science, and then I worked as an English as a second language teacher for a while, and I wanted to be a painter. And then I moved to Berlin to be a painter, and somehow I ended up making websites to get by because I was quite sick of English teaching. And I kind of just ended up liking making websites more and more and found myself painting less and less, and eventually I ended up founding a company with my partner. We do web development and online marketing. We're now 6 people, and we do consulting work. So we're working for quite a bit for the solar industry, both here and around the world. And we're doing a lot of work with Berlin-based NGOs and environmental and social startups. So we've really tried to keep the focus on that. It's probably meant challenges over the years, but that's kind of the way we like to work. So in that time, I probably now have built about 50 websites, either as the lead developer or as the sole developer. I've worked on projects using a lot of different front-end technologies, including sort of mapping and data visualization, apps for some of the big German airlines. So kind of a mix of stuff. So I feel like my job's a bit. I'm also currently completing my degree in creative computing through University of London, which will be finished at the start of the course, and I will be a very happy and free woman. And now, it's question time.
Well, I'll be glad to start. I'm Nancy, and me too. I'm very psyched about the course and have several questions. To begin with, I have an old website that was made with Flash.
Okay. Yep.
And it's really pretty. And it presents me as an artist, well, as a solo performer and as a filmmaker. But aside from the fact that it was hacked, and I don't know what to do, it's of course not responsive. And I have been told that I can just throw it away, basically, and start with another one. I would like to make another one to present things that I'm doing to earn money for my research for a film, and would like to do a lot of different things with that. So I think this is very suitable for me. Yeah. There aren't that many people here. Are you definitely going to run the course?
We already have, actually, our minimum is already reached.
Yeah, good.
People signed up. It's just that the Q&A session, not everybody decided to join. For some of them was the syllabus that I personally sent it was enough.
Okay.
Or some of them actually knew directly our course holder or to me directly inside the house. So the course is definitely going to happen.
Okay, good. Are you Eva?
I'm Eva, yes.
Yeah, okay, so I'm Nancy. Yeah. And then I would like to take advantage of the early bird. So what do I do?
Well, there are 2 options.
I don't want to pay by PayPal. I'm a self-employed person, and it's important for me to have a bill.
After the session, also the Eventbrite via PayPal, it generates the invoice automatically.
Yeah,
The other options that we're offering is actually to pay at our reception. Either with a card or with cash, it's either way.
Okay.
And I personally create an invoice in that day and basically send it to you.
Okay.
So after the session, we can talk about it or arrange it. Now, we have prolonged the early bird ticket. At the beginning, it was until the 23rd, and then because we also moved the Q&A session to the 23rd, we decided to prolong it until end of Friday, so until end of tomorrow.
Yeah.
Therefore, whoever is interested in getting the early bird, I would really advise you to do it today or tomorrow, either directly via me or actually anyhow, you need to do it via me, because also if you wish to pay via PayPal, I need to invite you to the page. Because we decided not to keep it completely public, as there are a little bit of requirements in the course. You need to have basic computer skills. therefore, go for
Yeah.
me.
Now, I would like to pay with my debit card. Yeah, after the
Not a
course.
problem.
Okay,
After
after
the
this session. Okay.
Juliana, do you have any questions?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Thank you. We seem to have a similar background with the environmental NGOs and political science type of research question.
Yeah, right. There's a lot of us around doing odd jobs. Yeah.
My question is also about paying. My husband is German and has an EC card, but I'm not sure how to do that over the phone with you. But that's probably something we could discuss afterwards.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Just got time for that.
Yeah, of
And
course.
we're very much looking forward to it, especially because we have 3 children and I get a day away from them.
Yay!
I like your strategy.
Any more questions about the question?
I have a similar background, so I'm not going to be taking part in the course.
I would love to take part in the course, but it's on Saturdays when I have to work, so...
I think you just got a new student. I have to check out like how much and all the stuff, but
Yeah,
it's
fantastic.
super interesting, yeah.
Okay, my question.
Yeah.
Do you have to download anything beforehand or?
Yeah, so I'm still working out the details, but yes, there will be a website that you'll get a login to, and then each week I think there will be like a set of files that are kind of already set up. The kind of the beginning of the project that we'll be working on will be set up. So yes, you're downloading that, but I mean it's just small amounts of stuff. And for the first week, we'll be really starting more or less from scratch, so there won't be so much then. For the third week, I'll be setting up Photoshop and GIMP templates because it's a little bit much to just start absolutely from scratch with that sort of stuff, especially if people aren't so familiar with Photoshop. So there'll be that.
Didn't you also write that we all should have Chrome, the Chrome browser? Because I have Firefox now.
You can, and many people do, today with Firefox, and it's okay. It's fine. I would really prefer if everybody installed Chrome. Because it's the tool that I'm the most familiar with and the most comfortable with, and although they offer very similar things, I'm probably going to be more effective at giving you advice and help in solving problems quickly if everybody's working with Chrome. So there's some differences in how basically in Chrome you're able to open up an inspector. And you're able to view and edit the code and change the code as you're actually watching it on the page. Now you can do the same thing in Firefox, but the way it works is just a little bit different at the moment.
Okay.
It's just my preference.
I have another question.
Yeah, sure.
Well, my first question. Any chance you will do this course again on weekdays at some time?
That's
It's very hard to do it on weekdays as sessions are long for a reason.
Yeah.
So you basically do not cut down one session on half, which would happen if we do it during the week. It's definitely something we can consider, I guess, for the upcoming ones.
Weekend work population.
Yes.
same here.
Thanks.
Yeah, I guess we can look at it if there's demand. I think we would have to definitely make each session would have to become 2 evenings, basically. So you would maybe run like Tuesday and Thursday nights, and you have a theory session.
Oh, I missed like all day, like just Saturday, but do it on
It's
the
very hard
Monday.
because most of the people actually work during the week.
Ah.
You're just the only one on the weekend.
It's section.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if there's no more questions, we can wrap it up and I can continue going through how we can set it up. Melanie, thank you very, very much for coming to the presentation.
Thanks so much for coming, guys. I'm really, really looking forward to this course, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
It'll be a good one.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be.